Joining us now, ABC 27 political analyst, Senator Bob McKnight. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Ann.
We don't usually get you on a Friday, but we
Right.
wanted to have you come on in so we could talk about this fairly big announcement. Governor Rick Scott says he'd like to recreate the Department of Commerce. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think this is one where we can look at history. The Department of Commerce was in place when I was in the legislature over 30 years ago. A few years ago, the decision was made to convert that agency, which was arguably caught up in a bureaucracy, into a public-private partnership called Enterprise Florida. The reasons behind that at the time were, number one, to inculcate a sense of entrepreneurialism as opposed to the bureaucracy. Number two, to provide a limited shield of confidentiality for negotiations on new prospects. Number three, to make sure the governor was named as the head of Enterprise Florida, so you had real political clout there. And probably the most important thing that was built into the move to Enterprise Florida was a firm integration of all the support components: education, transportation, funding, community permit approvals, etc. So those are all the things for which Enterprise Florida was created. If the governor now is essentially going to leave all that in place, but then superimpose on top of it another bureaucratic agency, I'm sure he's going to want to ask himself, do I want to walk away from those benefits we had when we created Enterprise Florida?
So you think there could be some unintended consequences?
Yeah, I do. I think the chaos certainly is going to be a problem, but perhaps he'll overcome that. I realize he is taking this under his wing and he personally wants to keep his eye on it. But I'm not so sure it was as broken as perhaps he might think. The track record of Enterprise Florida was really quite good, particularly before the economic downturn. In other words, in the Childs administration where it was created, and the Bush administration, was quite successful. So I think most people observing this, they were surprised by the decision, unless the governor has something else up his sleeve, could create a very precarious situation with an awful lot of prospects that are out there right now.
Well, let's get to the meat of it and why it matters to our viewers. This is all about job creation, the governor says. He says by streamlining these economic development agencies into one department, he thinks it will help job creation. Are you sure about that?
I'm not. As I say, I think you've got the potential of conflicts. You also have the potential of conflicts with local government. And for prospecting for businesses, it isn't the exclusive domain of any particular level of government. In other words, there are local governments. Tallahassee has its own economic development council. Miami, Jacksonville, Tampa, even your neck of the woods of Fort Myers. I mean, there's some very aggressive economic development efforts underway to include incentives, local tax incentives, etc. So it's not exactly a wise thing to just willy-nilly say, I'm going to take over and I'm going to use the heavy fist of the governor's office. I realize this is his major priority and he has committed himself to a target that is measurable. But I think many of us who have observed the economic development effort over the years, and I did as well in the Florida Chamber of Commerce, would urge caution that he not disrupt some of the successful programs and parts of the program that are in place.
And we're out of time, but just one quick last question. Does this require legislative approval? Is this a done deal?
He can make the change. Whether he can invoke any kind of a transfer of appropriations would be another question.
Okay.
I don't think it would be wise for him to do any of this without legislative approval.
We will be watching this issue very closely. Thank you so much for your insight. We'll be right back.